Hello Internet, my name is Lave and my London Film Festival experience continues. I went along and I watched Outlaw King, which comes to us from Scottish director David Mackenzie, whose other films include Starred Up, Brutal and Hell or High Water, which was one of my favourite films from 2016, so more than enough reason to be excited for this one. His latest is a historical epic about Robert the Bruce, the 14th century Scottish king, and how he got his crown and his continuing struggle to unite the clans to go to war against the occupying English, eventually gaining Scottish independence from the evil King Edward. So I know what you're all thinking, Braveheart sequel, and yeah, I suppose you can think of this as a sequel to Mel Gibson's film. It talks about events that happened in that film, but I think this one is approaching it with more historical accuracy, but certainly his name comes up a few times, and it's interesting to see them fill in all of the gaps. It is worth noting that David Mackenzie, when introducing this film, he said that this was a cut version from the film that they released at Toronto Film Festival 4 weeks ago, so this one is his definitive version, as he put it. It's been trimmed down, I think 20 minutes has been cut from it. So let's start with the good stuff. The battles, they're brutal and bloody and gratifying. Think Game of Thrones but without the fantasy elements, and no flying dragons or CG elements. It's all filmed practically with thousands of extras fighting on horseback and in the mud. In that sense, it's a proper medieval epic and extremely satisfying. This is easily David Mackenzie's biggest film in terms of scope, but not at the expense of his cinematic creativity. For example, the beginning of the film opens with this 10-minute uncut shot which goes between a political moment in a tent to outside and mingles with various people outside in this big field and then into the tent and out of the tent again. Normally I can spot the splices between the takes, but I genuinely think this was an uncut shot. It's beautiful. This continues over into the production design from the costumes and the location shooting, which all feels genuine, but I was really impressed with the lighting, which is fantastic. It all feels natural, with night scenes being lit with candles and fires, including a battle in a forest at night, which is exquisitely executed. And of course, the beauty of the Scottish Highlands and the Scottish Isles are stunning, with epic landscape shots that demands this to be seen in the cinema. But with this being a Netflix distribution, it's only getting a limited theatrical release. It's being released on Netflix on November the 19th, I think, which is a shame because this really does deserve to be seen on the big screen. I cringe at the idea of this being watched on an iPad or on a PC. It's just no. I'm still reeling from the fact that Annihilation didn't get a cinematic release. It really annoys me. But I digress. Let's talk about the performances. Chris Pine does a great job as Robert the Bruce, rocking an awesome mullet and a fairly decent Scottish accent, which only wavers on a couple of occasions. But he does a great job of humanising the man and his struggle to unite the clan. He has to make some pretty big decisions, often in the spur of the moment, just to get the crown, but then it's more about him dealing with the ramifications of that on both sides, from the English and from the other clans, and his performance really captures the emotional turmoil that his character goes through. It's pretty brutal. I also really liked Florence Pugh, who's quickly making a name for herself in the industry. She gives a feisty performance as his wife Elizabeth, an English girl from an arranged marriage. The chemistry between the two of them is great. It starts off as a bit cagey at first as they're starting to feel each other out, as they don't really know each other, but then it blossoms into this full-blown romance, which is just about the right amount. It doesn't get too schmaltzy, and there's a huge ensemble cast supporting them, too many to mention. The most notable is probably Aaron Taylor-Johnson, who plays this revenge-fueled Scot called Douglas, who's had his land and name taken away from him. Some might say that his performance is a bit OTT, but I personally loved it. He's just full of rage. He's this walking rage machine. He wants his land back. He does have one scene which I think is going to be the talk of his performance, where he really lets loose. But I personally also liked the quieter scenes when he talks to Robert the Bruce about the nature of revenge and how it can be used as a tool or a weapon. The weakest elements of the film, perhaps unsurprisingly, are some of the English performances, especially the son of the king, King Edward II, and his military leader. Their performances come across as a bit pantomime villain at time, and I can't decide whether it's their performances or a shonky script, or maybe a combination of the two. Speaking of the script, there are elements of humour in there. It's by no means a comedy, but there are certainly lighter moments which serve to humanise the characters and make them more relatable and or break some tension. There's a scene where Scott has been away for a long time and he returns home to see his wife, and as he's walking up this beach to meet her, the music all swells up and then it goes completely the opposite direction, which is pretty funny. There are various other moments like that throughout the film with some innuendo chucked in there, and it continues to the very end of the film with some text that comes up which amusingly explains that there is another story to be told as well. But speaking of the ending, it does kind of wrap up quite quickly, which may be a result of the 20 minutes cut. I would like to see the extended cut. I have heard that people have said from the Toronto Film Festival that it is a bit long. I just wonder if there is a happy medium, because this one did feel a bit choppy in its edit, so I wonder if there will be a definitive director's cut. So that's my thoughts on Outlaw King, and pause the video if you want to take a closer look at my enjoyment tracker now. In the end, I thought this film was a very solid medieval epic. It doesn't quite reach the same heights as Braveheart for me, but it's still an important story to be told. It's one of those films which I think if teenagers are studying, it would be great to watch, because I think it goes for more historical accuracy, and the battle scenes I do think match up to Braveheart, but the emotional stakes not quite there. So thanks very much for watching this review. I really do appreciate it. I've got a few more films coming up from London Film Festival, so please keep an eye out for them. In the meantime, thanks for watching this one. I really do appreciate it. If you can, give this video a like, and don't forget to share the Lave. Macaulay! Subscribe